This particular thing, what you are seeing on your screen right now, is the beginning, also called the lead, of a sales letter. A sales letter is like a sales page, except it's written as a letter or some sort of actual presentation. What it does is it articulates a compelling idea or argument for why you need to be interested in a particular topic or theme. And usually what happens is, well, if you want to take advantage or profit from that topic or theme, you buy the product. That's how sales letters work. Evan's idea for this particular piece of copy is to hook people by hitting at a theme called Project 2025 and play on election stress. Transubstantiate is the term for this. Transubstantiation is a Catholic term where, Jesus turned water into wine. So in your copy, you can actually take an existing idea out there in the world that's pretty ordinary out there in the news, and then just either tweak the idea or call it something different. Very common one that you'll see in sales letters is that rather than refer to a specific idea or like an act or some sort of law, they'll use like law HR 1025 or executive act number 1315. And the reason for that is because it creates more intrigue. Whereas if somebody saw Project 2025, they'd be like, I've seen that before. I know what that is. I don't need to pay attention to this. And then they ignore it. And you don't want that to happen. This is for a product called Real Estate Trend Alert. It ultimately sells real estate overseas. So we got some eyebrow copy here. Exclusive interview with the mastermind behind the controversial plan to restore the American dream for every citizen of this great nation. It feels good to get back on stream and actually play some of my greatest hits right out of the gate, because what is this guilty of? Preposition stacking. Exclusive interview with this person behind this thing to do this thing. That's an infinitive. The American dream for every citizen of this great nation. It gets confusing. The more prepositions you stack, the more clauses you stack in a single sentence, the more confusing it gets. P 2025. America is rushing towards a turning point no matter who wins the election. Every American age 50 plus who hopes to enjoy the comfortable retirement we were promised needs to tune in to this shocking broadcast. That's not bad. It's clearly calling out whom this is for, what they want. It's clearly insinuating that a societal bait and switch has taken place. Very many people of that age feel victimized by what has happened to them in their life. So that's a good pain point to hit. Needs to tune into the shocking broadcast. Pretty good. What I don't think is working right now is simply this. Is this enough to carry that? I'm not sure. I think you need to play around with a couple of different headlines. I think just P 2025 is not working for me. There's a great promo by Michael Palmer called Have You Heard of TAS? It was like a control front end for many, many years. It sold so many millions of dollars. All the headline was Have you heard of TAS? And then people sort of like ran with that headline template for a very long time. Have you heard of eVTOL? Have you heard of this thing? And that sort of format, that sort of structure is, I think, more interesting here because it builds intrigue around whatever P 2025 is. P 2025, you look at that and you go, why should I care? If you change the frame around that, you might be able to get a little bit more leeway. So as this stands right now, I don't think this headline is working. So let's go through some bullets. This already feels like a very busy bit of deck copy, especially if this is going to be a video interview. You're probably going to have room for like an eyebrow that's shorter than this, the main headline, and like a 2-line deck. Very rarely are you going to see this. And the reason why is because if there's a video on this page and there's a bunch of bullets, it's going to push the video down below what's called the fold. And if people have to scroll to see the video that you're writing copy around, they'll just click off. Look at actual VSL pages. You'll find that the copy around them is typically pretty minimal. The other way that people do it is they'll do eyebrow, main headline, and either skip the deck copy or have a very short bit of deck copy. And then they'll either put bullets at the bottom or they'll actually put in some testimonials or social proof at the bottom, right below where the video is playing. As far as this is going right now, this is too many bullets. Discover the truth behind P 2025 and how it will affect retirees nationwide. This only works if you already articulate the power that P 2025 is going to have. So for example, if I told you guys right out of the gate, hey, on this stream, I'm going to tell you the power of ashwagandha. And I just started that way. Most of you would be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But say instead, I said, listen, I just got back. I have horrible jet lag. I'm feeling, really, really down in the dumps. But like, you know what? I actually did just discover a natural herbal supplement that's been completely changing my life, making me super virile, caused me to like lose my beard, shaved my head, tripled my testosterone, et cetera, et cetera. And it's called ashwagandha. And if you stick around, I'm going to make sure that you discover the truth behind ashwagandha and how it will affect you. Do you see what I did there? It's an ordering of things. You have to think about the details and intrigue as being a little bit like a snowball. The amount of interest, like pent up interest that a person has for something, it accumulates over time and over like very specific, subtle details. And it's once you have enough of those details that you can then be like, now that you're into this, you're over the course of this presentation going to discover why this is so cool. That's why this is not working right here. The only surefire way to protect your wealth, family, freedoms during the post-election chaos. 4 pillars that could ensure the lifestyle you worked your whole life for lasts through every one of your golden years. A lot of these bullets, like, they just need more copy around them. I don't know why I should care about these at this point. The threats facing America's foundational values of liberty and justice for all. How to claim a step-by-step playbook that can make this election the best thing that ever happened to you, no matter who comes out on top. This feels more appropriate for this particular position. But again, I would consider actually rejiggering this headline complex. This final bullet is teasing the actual product, but not actually naming the product. So good on that. I imagine legal would push back against that particular claim. Kim. And this is the host who's going to be introducing the topic. It is not enough to win elections. Anyone can see it's going to take a lot more than that if we want to bring back the American dream. Even in this divisive election, it seems like this is one point we can all agree on, and it is the main argument of my guest today. That feels a little awkward. The author of the controversial P 2025. Is this going to be with somebody from the Heritage Foundation? Because legal's first question is going to be like, wait, Project 2025, that was written and authored by the Heritage Foundation. And so you're going to have to like get around that, like, no, this is a different P 2025 that's authored by Ronan. And it's like, it's a whole thing. The man says his plan is the only hope to keep the standard of living we've worked so hard to achieve. Kim, if like me, you're one of the many Americans aged 50 and up looking at our country and wondering, how do we get here? So Kim, I'm assuming, is a person who's older than 50. You'll agree it's worth at least hearing him out. Even the most steadfast Democrats admit Bidenomics has backfired. Our nation's debt has topped $33 trillion and continues to grow day by day. As the cost of housing rises, more and more people are on the streets of our major cities, and inflation is quickly eating away at the value of our savings. This is a real estate promo, by the way, guys. In fact, inflation is so bad, it's outpacing the housing market for the first time since the 60s. You've almost certainly seen the value of your home rise since Biden took office. This is just a thought. It's just an idea. There might be a dream that a lot of people have to buy either a second home or like a rental real estate property. And what you can do is actually, you can blame all the economic things, inflation, for example, and housing, for preventing that, basically preventing normal everyday people from accomplishing their dream of becoming, developing a rental real estate property. You can even go back to like the 50s or 60s and say like, it was normal for people to like rent out a room, to own a house and like rent it out. But now no more because of all the inflation and bad things that have been happening. It's no wonder that people are homeless and on the streets. They can't afford a house at this point. So how do you expect to afford a rental property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And what that does is it rhetorically tees up, well, the opportunity to get real estate that's cheap elsewhere. But did you know that even though the average home is worth this more than it was in 2020, the value of those dollars has fallen? So far, it's like you lost $9,000. That's a little confusing. Be careful when you start throwing out numbers. Like, I can see this confusing a reader. It's not a pretty picture, and for many of us, it's in my age bracket, it feels like the American dream is slipping out from beneath us. And I hate to see it, but things could get worse before they get better. This is already the most violent election in decades, and it hasn't even begun. Good line. One thing that immediately jumped out at me, it's not enough to this. Anyone can see it is going to take a lot of this. Even in this divisive election, it seems like this is one of the points we can all agree on, and it is the main argument of my guest today. What's going on there? We're using a lot of pronouns and referential words to point to stuff and set up terms rhetorically. But I would say that these sentences are weaker because of it. The normal person consciously is not going to notice that, but subconsciously they will. And so you got to be careful of stuff like that. His plan promises income that outpaces inflation so you can watch your savings grow instead of shrink, the freedom to live life on your own terms without worrying about being canceled or ending up on the wrong side of woke culture, the security of knowing your grandchildren can go to the best educational institutions this country has to offer, no matter what happens with DEI between now and then. The language, I can see it being very appealing to conservatives. The biggest hurdle that you're going to encounter in this promo is the fact that a lot of conservatives don't want to live overseas. All of this would work well to appeal to them. But the second you go, oh, also, by the way, this involves buying condos in Panama, you're going to lose a lot of people. It outlines, it referring to his plan, it outlines, this man's plan outlines. Just replace the it with what you're referring to. He's even written about a way to double your nest egg in 5 years without draining your savings or sinking your wealth into some harebrained investment that's more likely to crash than something else, all by reviving an American tradition of investing offshore. I actually think it's probably a good thing for some lists and some audiences to reveal basically what this entails earlier on. I've also sold Rita. I really buried the details until way later, but I also did reveal that I was talking about offshore accounts early on in the lead. We're talking about that rhetorical snowball, the details that it's picking up, the desires, the notions, the identifications that it's appealing to along the way. Very, very clearly signal that we're going to be talking about something offshore or overseas, and then almost mention it in passing, and that way it's going to work a little bit better. But again, it's just finessing all of this a little bit better. Once you get through this, people will be on board, and then people will get to this and they'll be like, nah, fuck you. So that's something that you got to keep in mind and be careful about. It's natural to be a little skeptical. I was too, but I've looked at his plan, and I can assure you, though the ideas may seem a little unconventional or even controversial, there's nothing illegal or even the slightest bit un-American about any of them. It's funny because people are going to hear him talk and hear his accent and then immediately be like, wait a minute. And as far as investments go, they all carry risk. But in my 25 years advising in the financial world, I don't think I found a single investment that holds as much promise with as little risk as what he's going to outline for you today. That's a good implied promise. That's pretty strong. I like that. I'll bring him out in just a moment, but first let me introduce myself to all the new viewers joining us in this monumental broadcast. Kim Iskian. I do not think you need to introduce Kim Iskian. I think your opportunity to introduce Kim Iskian is up here. And for that, I would look at Mike Ward promos that have Mike Ward be the host. For those of you who don't know, Mike Ward was the publisher of a company called Money Map. Money Map recently was folded, into the Oxford Club. It doesn't exist anymore, but there was a series, very many promos that sold just tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. So much money. And they all had the same format where it was Mike Ward, the publisher, interviewing the guru about some sort of investment idea. Once the investment idea was fully proven and fleshed out, it was at that point that an offer was actually made. That's how the structure of those promos went. I would look at those promos if you want to introduce Kim. You also have the complete opportunity to just not introduce Kim. I leave that up to you, but then you get into the actual stuff. All right. I think that you're doing a very good job of pandering to a conservative audience, but I don't know yet if you're really either drawing in conservatives who would normally be opposed to this idea, but can be convinced of it, or conversely, conservatives who are already on the fence and already kind of into it, and then just need an opportunity to buy. That latter group, I don't think this is working for at all. It might need some finesse for that former group, the group of conservatives who are not yet convinced of investing overseas. It's very hard to talk to the Buy America crowd and be like, you know what is better than buying American? Buying not American. And then you have this Irish dude who's talking about it. There's a lot of friction there that you're going to have to navigate. What you're trying to do here is intelligent, but I don't think it's working. And so I would play around with it.